Hey everybody, welcome back to the Badgerland Birding Podcast, bringing you birding news and stories from the Badger State and beyond. Today we're with Matt Young and Lillian Stokes, who are the authors of the new Stokes Guide to Finches. It is a beautiful book. It has tons of finch information, so it's a must-have if you're a finch fan. And we're excited to hear about how this kind of came together and what the response has been so far. So how are you guys doing?
We're great. We're very, very good, and excited the book is out finally, and happy you like it.
Yeah, how long did it take to compile everything and what goes into making something like that?
A
Well,
lot of hard work, you know.
go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, I've been
But,
at this for 25 years, guys. So this,
well,
but
it
anyway,
depends. It depends, there's knowing things and having done stuff, and then there's the actual putting together a book, which is a trickier and harder part. I've been doing that for well, this is my 36th book, so I've been at this for a very long time, way too long, probably. Um, but so 2.5 years of solid work. And I'm talking 24/7. I'm talking toward the end, no breaks, no holidays, no weekends, no nothing. 15-hour days to make the deadline, and that's highly, highly important if you're in publishing, because that will get you in good with your publisher and get you to have you do more books. So yeah, a lot of work and tons. People who get the book or who are going to get the book will understand that in the back of the book, unlike a lot of other books, it's footnoted. So there's pages and pages and probably hundreds of references in the back to all the stuff that we indicate in the book and all the science and the scientific papers behind it. So there's a lot of reading that, a lot of delving into stuff.
that's
So so
that's
yeah.
new to the Stokes guides, guys. That's the first time that I understand, right? That you've had a literature cited section like that.
Well, in the very beginning, and I've done the Stokes guides have been going on for 35 years, and they started out with a lot of behavior guides, which was very new at that time. This is way back, in the 80s, the 90s. People really hadn't, it was more like a check off a bird and let's move on. It wasn't all about the life history and going deeper, and that's what we always did. But that has some reference material in the back, but nothing like what we've done now. And of course, a lot of the Stokes guides are identification guides, like the big, ID guide to all the birds of North America, and then the regional guide. So yeah.
Yes.
So
Oh,
maybe
so
to answer your question, it took us from point of con when we signed the contract, which was July of 2021. So it took about 3 years to from start to out the door. Although we kind of handed in the bulk of the manuscript. What was it, Lillian? March of 20.
March of 23. Yes, and that was the words part. So, when you do a book, there's the words part, and then there are all the gorgeous photos. The photos then came second after the words. I put all together, have all the words and all the manuscript and everything perfect, and then they import that into the final production with all the photos. So yeah, 23. I remember, Matt, that couple of days before that, we were like, no sleep, no nothing, just get it done.
Yeah, we
And
pulled some
we,
all-nighters.
we did.
Because I had, obviously I had a day job at the time, as you guys knew. But yeah, pretty amazing to that last kind of push. The last 5 to 10% is always the hardest. So it was yeah, and like I said, this is a dream for me that I was able to work with Lillian on this, and to kind of bring what I've been so passionate about for since that time in Yellowstone in the summer of '95. Just became super passionate about finches, and here we are now. We have a book out, so it's pretty amazing, really.
Well, what I notice about it too is that finches are a type of bird that people I don't think usually think of as being an extensive study always. It's, oh, finches, there's a handful of them that live in the US. But this book is thick. It goes into a lot of detail about these species. I mean, you would think a finch book would be a quarter of the size, but this has all of the information that one could ask for. So where did this wealth of knowledge come from to go so far beyond? I mean, it's the size of a normal total North American field guide.
Right. But I think, what you've hit on is the fact that this is a really unique book. It's not like any other guide that's been done, aside from starting with the fact, well, it's the first, this is the first Finch guide to basically all the Finches of the United States and Canada. There's been European ones, but nothing like this that's this complete. And, Lord knows I've done a lot of field guides. So the goal with this was to do something unique and very special. So it combines several different aspects. It combines all the information that you would get in a usual, field guide. It's all the ID, the subspecies, the distribution, the habitat, language, stuff like that. But then it goes much deeper to bring into things that would be in a sort of a generalized guide. So all the life history information, the breeding, the nesting, the number of eggs, what do they do, how do they do it? And then it combines as well tons and tons of scientific information, which is built on, and we acknowledge we stand on the shoulders of decades of incredible researchers and birders and e-birders and backyard birders, that all the combined knowledge. And then additionally, it has some really unique things, such as what we call the quick takes, which is a sort of fun storytelling introduction to each main Finch chapter. Sometimes includes poetry that I wrote, and then uniquely the amazing, mind-boggling guide, the foraging charts, which Matt did, which tells you where and when and what finches are eating in what part of the country. So it's very, and the other part of it that was a real trick, we said to ourselves, okay, this has to be everything from, your fledgling Finch fan to some fanatic who wants to get into the details of type 2 red crossbill. And
I'm looking at him. I'm looking at him.
Victor, an unkinked mess, recording that I have. Let's send it to Matt and let's discuss this. So that was a huge challenge, and I think from everything, all the feedback we've gotten, we really succeeded.
Yeah, I commend you guys for putting all the footnotes of the scientific journals in there, because it's almost more like a literature review then. There's that. I don't think people understand how much work that adds in to add all of those references. And I think a lot of people would have just skipped it over. So I appreciate you guys putting it in there.
No,
and then, I like the spectrograms too that you guys included.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a brain dump that's been in my brain for a long time. I mean, Finches really, I was started out much more broadly Finch based than just crossbills. Just crossbills became, this kind of, burgeoning area of interest because of the call type phenomenon. But yeah, when we were first talking about, what's this book look like, we're like, we have to put in citations as best we can. But as Lillian was saying, we kind of wanted, the beautiful thing about Finches, and you guys, we've all kind of touched upon this together, is you have your backyard common variety Finches that everybody kind of is familiar with. And that kind of exists around the world, to tell you the truth. Everybody kind of has a background or backyard variety of Finches. But then there's these mysterious ones that show up every so often that, the Finch forecast has been trying to kind of dial in for the better part of 20, 25 plus years now, that we see some years and then we might not see them again for 6 years. So there's that interest, and also the information out there and the observations out there lend itself to being able to kind of all right, let's present something that, the backyard birder, the novice type, and that's where kind of the origin of the quick takes came from. When Lillian and I were talking in the beginning was, can kind of a narrative, capture the personality of these birds if somebody just wants to open up to the beginning of each species account and then read those as kind of an intro of all right, what is this bird about? And then we do the deep dive into the information and the science.
Right. But many ways of presenting information. As a matter of fact, one reviewer on Amazon called it fun bedside reading, and I think they were referring to just read the quick takes. They're entertaining stories. Some are serious, some are not, some are joking. Some of them are my adventures trying to find my holy grail, the hoary red pole during the big, 2021
Rest in
eruption.
peace, Hoary Red Pole.
Rest in peace. God bless. I knocked myself out for that one. It was like hours in the freezing cold, lifting the camera and trying to find the hoary red pole. And I didn't, now, of course,
It still exists, guys.
Yeah.
Still
it
exists.
does. It does.
It just exists in a different way.
They've been lumped. Yeah, the red pole is hoary and common have been lumped into something now called red pole.
Yeah.
It feels
Still
wrong.
a subspecies.
As far as your bedside read, I just picture like a couple being like, honey, there's a type 2 red crossbill.
Yeah.
I think we had a couple specific bird books. Like we had Amar Ayash doing the Gull guide, and we have you guys doing the Finch guides. And I feel like it's great when you have the people that are the most passionate about it making the books. Because sometimes you just have people that are like, oh, I wanted to make a book. It's like they could make a book about finches, but you guys with the passion you have for it are going to make a much better book than just kind of the average person being like, yeah, let me write something about that. So I appreciate that we seemingly have the experts making the books about their favorite subjects.
Well, thank you. In a way, I say the origin of the book, it was kind of magical. And I feel in a way, the book exists because I was recruited by Red Cross Bill. So what happened was in the beginning of the super flight and the pandemic in August of 2020, I lived in New Hampshire, and the former director, a good friend of mine of the Harris Center for Conservation Education in Southern New Hampshire, he contacts me. He said, Lillian, oh my God, there are Red Cross bills coming every morning to the parking lot. The parking lot was dirt for grit. You got to get over here. So I ran over there, and like for a month, I was there every morning. I was videoing them. I was photographing them. I was recording them. I was writing notes and observations. And I feel that I just sort of bonded with them. I kept hearing their calls in my seat, jip, 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 jip. And then what you do is
Matt, what type was that?
Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was really cool. It was, so what you do when you encounter a Red Cross bill, whip out your phone and record it, because what people don't realize is think of Red Cross bills as living in different tribes. They all speak their own language. They're in different areas of the country. So they know their tribe's calls, or they don't pay attention to the other tribe, but it's hard for the average birder to quickly pick it up. With practice, you can learn one from the other. They sound a lot alike. So you record them, and then you send a recording to a decoder expert, Finch expert. And at the time, people said, Lillian, send them to Matt at Cornell. And the first recording went to Matt Medler, a friend of Matt's.
A friend of mine.
It's like, oh my God, there would have been
a whole other story.
Right. There wouldn't have been a book. So they goes, no, you want the crossbill guy. You want, Matt Young. So the recordings went to Matt Young. And then I was just, I had all these questions like where they come from and how they know where to go. And it turned out that I had 1, 2, 3. And at the time, they were calling 10, now we know is 12. So I had 4 different call types, and that blew my mind. I thought, oh my God, all the way over here from New Hampshire, from way in the Pacific Northwest, some of these birds are coming. And so Matt and I, met one another and got together and said, wow, this is so cool. And we really need to do something, and we need to do a Finch book. And that was the genesis, really, a paths crossing over Red Crossbills at the height of the superflight pandemic. Everything came together. So I really feel, it was magic kind of in a certain kind of way.
Totally is. Just even to add to that, because we live 6 hours apart, and pretty much we're in contact almost every day, whether it was text or email or phone or Zoom or in person. But the very first time we got together at Montague in Massachusetts, Montague, is that a National Wildlife Refuge?
It's Sand Plains. It's a
wildlife management area, right?
Yeah, conservation area, yes.
Conservation area. So anyway, the very first time we meet, there are crossbills in the area. We knew that. So we get out of the car, and literally a person drives up, says, there's no crossbills here. They take off. Within like 2 minutes, birds come down. They land at the back, basically, tire of the vehicle of Lillian's. and this one is just kind of like poking out from behind the vehicle looking at us.
That photo's in the book under the crossbill chapter. That guy is looking up at us going, you guys got to do this book. It was amazing.
Again, they kind of, it was like, these kind of things happen in life sometimes where you go, all right, well, maybe we got to do something here. I'm big on the belief of things happen for a reason. So,
Yeah, I think that many people that are more new to birding or have not dove that deep into it would kind of be like finches, yeah, they're cool, but there is something that's extremely captivating about them. Like looking at your background, Matt, for those of you who are listening, it's a bunch of evening grosbeaks flying by a feeder, and you can see the snow in the background and conifers in the background. Like that image just makes me want to go out in winter and start looking for finches immediately. So what do you two think it is about the finches that can so easily captivate our imagination as birders once we get to know them?
I think people are always like, well, what's a finch? And now we know genetically is how we define finches because they can look quite different. And by the way, we also covered the Hawaiian finches, and some of them have big long bills, and they look very different. But they're beautiful. They are flock-oriented birds. I think that what defines a finch is togetherness, movement, and tribalism is how I would sum up finches. So they're yeah.
Again, kind of gets, it's a little bit repetitive in some ways, but I think what makes them so captivating is there's some that everybody are kind of familiar with, and then there's ones they're not, that you just don't see that often. And I just think that aspect, that kind of polar kind of dynamic of, all right, I see these house finches and goldfinches, but I never see the red poles and the grosbeaks that often. But then one day you wake up on a winter morning and you look out at your yard, or you look out at a yard, or you drive a mile down the road, and then you see these evening grosbeaks or pine grosbeaks or red poles, and you go, oh my God, these birds are beautiful. And they just, as Ron always said, rest in peace, Ron Pittaway, when it started the winter finch forecast, they tend to bring brightness to winter months that sometimes can be long and kind of not with a lot to look at, especially along the northern tier states. So I think that really kind of captures, I think, the fascination with finches, like why you want to all of a sudden run out and go find them.
Right. The newness, the excitement. And we know as birders, new and more rare and exciting captivates you and makes you want to run out and go look at things. We sort of referenced that in one of the little lines in the book. I think I said something. There's an excitement under the vagrancy. There are really rare finches to talk about, the vagrants in Alaska, and we cover those as well because they're blown off course on their migrations, from over in Asia and out over the water, and they get blown in by storms and displaced into places like Attu. That's why the big ear birders all go to Attu to find rare finches. But there's something about rarity that captivates. There's an area of your brain, the substantia nigra subsection of that, and it just lights you up. So here you have these birds. Remember, they're eruptive. So for a lot of finches, you don't know when they'll be there. They could be here this year and not next year, or show up or not show up. So all of a sudden they show up, and it's new and it's exciting, and you want to go see them. And then when you see them, of course, they're beautiful. There's also finches out west that are beautiful and gorgeous, and a lot of people don't see, like the rosy finches, the gray-crowned and brown-capped and black rosy finches. Those are gorgeous birds. So people out there, again, they're mountaintop breeders. They're way up there in the cloudlands for most of them. But then sometimes during winter, they come down to ski areas, and that would be very exciting to see those birds as well. So lots of excitement, lots of movement, lots of surprises, and then gorgeous birds.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. During your guys' research for the book, what is the single most crazy finch fact that you learned or that that you want to share?
There's so many things and so many areas. I know we tried to bring a broad spectrum and everything that we could. I know one of the things I tried to do was make sure a lot of whatever research was done about female finches, got into the book. And a lot of female finches sing. That's a little known fact. As a matter of fact, house finches in New York City area had regional dialects was studied, and the females were same song, same dialects as males, and they were both sort of singing. But the other part of it is that female finches often are, the sex ratio is skewed. Now that's true in some other birds too, but there are often a lot more males than females, and that leads to amazing kinds of information. I kept saying, why? What goes on? What is happening there? It's hard to find that information out. You're not going to exactly color band nestlings and watch them every day of their lives, but or their entire lifespan. I think somebody out in Adak Island, there was a study, and they found that in the nest the sex ratio was similar, but by the time the birds got to be the end of their first year, the sex ratio was skewed already. And that researcher actually found that the recruitment of young males into mobbing flocks of predators was higher than females. So theoretically, what might happen is join our flock, and if you're good at mobbing and keeping us all safe, go ahead. But for some reason, the female finches remained quieter still, or maybe got picked off more by predators. But that was in a specific location on a specific instance. So basically, it's harder to try to figure that out. And in a lot of other circumstances, I'll tell you another weird thing. So this goes along the lines of, well, you think the common finches and goldfinches and goldfinches and house finches. Well, house finches breeding rituals. There's all about breeding, and some of it's pretty wild stuff. Down in the Southwest, the mating rituals, they have, quote, dating circles. So house finches form a circle on top of saguaro cactus. And they're all there in a circle, and there's an inner circle and an outer circle, and other pairs are trying to get into the circle, and all of a sudden some of the pairs fly off with one another, and those are mated pairs. Go figure. I think they do the same thing in the Pacific Northwest on top of telephone poles. I have no idea. You have to ask them what's going on, but that was kind of a wild and crazy fact. And I'll do one more. Okay, so again, with the house finches, the red on males, and this is well studied. I mean, Jeff Hill has a whole lab of studying plumage coloration. So it turns out that red on male house finches comes from the carotenoid pigments that they eat in their food. And the redder they are, the better they are at foraging and getting those pigments. But again, deeper dives into the genetics now show that those are more viable. They're better quality. They resist disease better. They're often better providers at the nest. So females prefer the reddest males because, the redder, the better. He's the guy that is
Not on a t-shirt.
better, the redder, the better. Female house finches. Look at their little t-shirts. And none of that, the female finches sit on the nest for like 95% of the time. People don't realize this. It's not, it's not like robins or cardinals where the female hops off and gets other food. No, they are sit tight, and they are fed regurgitated food by the males. So again, you want the guy who's really good at getting food. He's really red, and he's a better quality genetically guy. So the redder, the better. So that's, a couple of tiny ones. The book is full of this stuff. Matt,
yeah, it's full of it. Two that I would give you quickly. Polyandry occurs in at least 5% of the goldfinches, which is kind of cool. It's also suspected in white-winged crossbill. Who knows? Sometimes when you do these deeper dives into these studies, you find out things that you don't realize. The one that was kind of interesting to me, and it doesn't really super surprise me, is areas of Cassin's finches where they breed is fairly stable, where, the same individuals are coming back and forth to the same area. And then in other areas that are range, there's years where there's not that many around. And then there's years where there are some around. So it's kind of, so one area is stable, same birds kind of generally coming back and forth and breeding there. Another area, it's, there's not, some years there's hardly any there, and other years there's several birds there. So, I mean, again, it gets to that, eruptive quality in some ways. It's like siskins, as we know, some years they can breed around, in the southern part of the range, even in Wisconsin and New York and Massachusetts. And then you might go 6, 7, 8 years where they don't breed around you at all. So it's kind of interesting. And then I imagine in other areas of the range, siskins are probably pretty stable where they breed. They're there every year, and so parts of the boreal, obviously. So
I used to wonder a lot about, particularly in the beginning when I first met Matt, and I was sending him recordings, and I'm like, well, okay, how do they know where to go? How do they get across the landscape? How do they know when to move? And again, the beauty of us having delved into all the research on these birds is that you find out things like, say, for example, crossbills know, or take white-winged crossbills know when to move because it's a bit of a group decision. So they go into, say, a 5-star Michelin cone crop tree, and they're all eating. And it's sort of like, don't talk with your mouth full. So they're quietly munching away, munching away, munching away. And then they're sort of using up the whole thing. And they start calling because it's like the depletion of that particular tree, or they wind up in a bad tree, and they're like, jip, 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 jip. No, this thing's, it's like, no, we got to get out of here, people, and you're with your group, remember, crossbills have a particular crossbill, so they only eat conifers, and to some extent, there's generalizations about this. To some extent, the different types of different crossbills have slightly different size bills. So you're with your group, you all have the same Swiss Army knife exactly for the food type you eat. So you're like, no, we got to get out of here. It's a group decision. We're going on to the next tree, and then the next tree, or this is bad. And then what really blows you away is not only do they have to come in and assess constantly where adequate food is, when they breed, they somehow come into an area, with a rich patch of conifers, and they assess enough to know when they breed, how good it's going to be in 3 months out when they're raising the babies, and is it going to be good enough to get those babies out of the nest? And that's just phenomenal. Again, it's this amazing research and things that we uncovered, and it just leaves you mind-boggled about the abilities of these birds.
I should mention too, polyandry is when the female has multiple mates, by the way. I don't know if I find that there for the crowd for goldfinches.
Yeah, that's for
it's again only 5%, but it's interesting that it occurs at all. But yeah, the more you dive into this stuff, even for somebody like me, you start to find these nuggets that you're like, that's interesting. Didn't exactly expect that, so.
Yeah, when you guys are putting together, so when you had the idea for the book, you go to like the publisher and you're like, hey, we have a proposal. How formal is it? You just send them a text. You're like, hey, we're going to make this book.
Sorry.
And they're like, cool.
I'm sorry. The reason I'm laughing is because it's way more extensive and complicated, and to some extent difficult than one thinks. And every author out there who's listening to this knows, right? You don't just casually walk in a door and say, I'm going to do a book, unless you're self-publishing. So especially when you're publishing with one of the top big 5. So the Stokes guides have all been done by Little Brown, owned by Hachette, one of the top 5 publishers. So even for me walking in the door with a proposal, having done 35 books with the same publisher, unheard of, you still have to do a good proposal. Because this is business. The publisher has to say, well, how expensive is it going to be? How many color photos do we have? How many pages? What's the print run? How will we make money? So the long proposal, if you're doing a good proposal, and a lot of this is online too, I did review some of that, includes not only sample chapters, a couple of sample chapters, your whole outline of your book. How long is it? How many pages? How many range maps? How many photos? What's going to be involved in it, and then what's in each chapter, and when are you going to hand it in? How long is it going to take you? And then a lot of details about, it's called evidence of need. So why would anybody buy this book? Publisher, has to think, is this going to sell? And the world of birding books is incredibly competitive. There's tons of stuff out there, tons more coming out all the time. So why would anybody buy this? Who's your audience and why do they care about this? Well, obviously, finches are they're feeder birds across the country. 91 million people feed birds. That's kind of a no-brainer that maybe finches would be of interest to people. So that was in the proposal. And then things like, well, how are you going to market it? People expecting that miraculously, unless I know some authors who actually hire their own publicist, or you have some amazing machine behind you, they expect that you have to have your own publicity and do a lot of it. So what's your platform as an author? I'm giving you a little mini thing here. Anybody out there listening want to do a book, this is going to go in your proposal. What's your platform? How many Facebook followers do you have? How many on YouTube do you guys have? How are you followers when you want to do your book? So that kind of stuff. And where will it be seen and heard? And that's one of the reasons Matt and I are thrilled to be on your show, to have an opportunity to tell everybody that we're really pleased about this book and we really think you'd love it.
Yeah, so Lillian always says right people at the right place at the right time was the two of us coming together. I will say, what machinery do you have on like getting a book published? The amazing Lillian Stokes here, having already published 35 books, certainly helped from a proposal perspective. I just want to at least get that in there.
Yeah.
And that's true. 35 Stokes books, a lot of them on the shelf, a lot of them. I mean, here's the Eastern Guide. So
I know you can. Would you have this
faded in the background so bad?
There we go.
There we go.
My screen background is a flock of red crossbills, a photo I took. So that doesn't hurt, because on the bookshelf, we put the Finch guide next to the other Stokes guides, and that helps salesmen, sort of sell it and place it, and it becomes, something that's usual and accepted. And not to mention, the reason I have 35 books on the shelf is all those years, and including with, my husband at the time, of incredible hard work and success. Your books have to sell. They have to be well organized and beautiful and turn in well organized manuscripts on time. The publisher doesn't want to waste time with people who cannot perform. Really, it's not easy. And people say, well, what motivates you? Well, it's fear. You finish a book, you're out of a job.
That's a good motivator.
Yeah. I wanted to say I think the first field guide we bought was the orange Stokes field guide to the birds. So we had the little like Stand Tequila blue one for Wisconsin, and then we got the orange one. And I think we used it used it so much, I think it broke in half.
Yeah.
Like we took that thing everywhere. So
it's a brick. I call this big red. It is all the birds, with unbelievable photos of every subspecies and species. But that's an ID guide. That was 6 years in the making. That's an ID guide. So the current one is, I think, it combines the best of everything that I've done before, and then icing on the cake, things that have never been done, like the quick takes, and then, of course, Matt contributing his immense knowledge and those beautiful foraging charts, which are unique, and a lot of good stuff. But I still think we have to get past the idea of, well, it's just a Finch guide. It's so much more than that that's included in this book. It will blow your mind on just your ordinary finches. You think, house finches or goldfinches. No. Oh, and then we threw in how to keep them safe at your feeders and what to feed them and all that for somebody who's just like, I want to get started in birds. Finches are good. What do I do? That kind of stuff, all the way up to the experts.
Yeah, I'd argue, the combination of field guides, all the natural history stuff, and also kind of narrative prose, kind of even poems being written, which are three big popular areas of, avian literature, all being combined in a single guide, presented the way we did. I don't think it's ever been done, actually. I mean, I think we tried to make it an interesting read. We even drop in, wellness aspects of birding, throughout the book in various spots. So, it was kind of nice to kind of add that stuff because let's face it. I mean, I'm a bird nerd beyond Finches. I have a ton of field guides. Some of the books that you pick up and read can be pretty dry.
Yes, that's
they can be pretty dry. You're just looking at them for like, all right, there's the picture. This is what it looks like. These are traits. But we really tried to make this so it's something for, an interesting
good bedside reading.
Yeah.
And I think as the holiday season comes around, good gift for the Finch fan in your life. But too, if we have a good eruption season, I feel like that's going to draw interest as well. Because people are like, what's this thing in my feeder I've never seen before? Like, oh, let me learn more about the finches I have going on. So they can help promote the book as well.
It's a perfect, book for the holiday season.
On the proposal, it's like, how are you going to promote this? The finches.
Eruptions.
Yeah, we're going to stage an eruption right there. Right? And there are eruptions, and there will be. And this year there'll be some birds, maybe not the size of the original superflight, but one thing you can tell about finches, they're going to come again and again. We just don't always know exactly where, but thanks to the winter finch forecast, Matt and Tyler, we have a better handle on some of that stuff. And the other cool thing is that there's ways you can help too. And we cover that in the book. We cover conservation and areas for research, but also things that you can do, including send in your recordings. So we still need recordings of evening grosbeaks. They have call types too. Purple finches have call types. Certainly all the red crossbills have call types, and we're still learning a lot about which call type is where, what does it mean, how do we track them, where they're going to erupt to, what are their real ranges. And crossbills, of course, the big mystery finch, because are they species? Are they not? One was made into a species, the Cayer crossbill, in 2017. But are the other species in hiding? What about those tribes? Are they really species about to become species at some point? And down there. And then female song. There's a lot of people very interested in female song. Record the female songs. Make sure you're recording a female, because when it comes to Cassin's finch and house finch females are all females. But the striped brown Cassin's finches can be males. And purple finches. So males and female, purple immature male and female. Purple finches and Cassin's finches can both look alike. So you have to make sure you pay attention.
Second year, they get that plumage.
It takes them a year to get red, the male. So pay attention to what's going on. Obviously, if one is mate feeding another, or they're copulating and the striped one's on the bottom, it's a female. There are ways to tell and understand more about female behavior to ID females. So we need female recordings of female finches as well.
Yeah, as we laid out the book, you got kind of the bulk of it is the main breeding finches, and then we cover the vagrants, and then we cover the honey creepers, and then we have these extra chapters, one on feeding finches and gardening for finches, and then one on the history of eruptions, and then we have the research and conservation section, which we really wanted to bring to light the conservation crisis around the honey creepers, which are finches of Hawaii. And, the ongoing conservation efforts that the American Bird Conservancy has kind of taken on the lead role in the Birds Not Mosquitoes initiative. That's a multi-agency, multi-organizational partnership on trying to do what we can to save the last 16, 17 species of honey creepers. And then, as you guys know, I've been on here talking about the Evening Grosbeak Road to Recovery project as well, 90% decline over the last 50 years. These are two ongoing conservation projects with lots of research in it that's going to need continuous support to to hopefully help these species out. And that's kind of what we somewhat end the book with, is that research and conservation section of, what can you do? How can you get involved? And as Lillian was just saying, recordings, finches lead themselves to, as I've always promoted with the Finch Research Network, it's a network and everybody can kind of play a role in this, whether it's the enthusiasm around finches, recording of finches, artwork of finches, the science of finches, you name it, all things finch, as Lillian said in the
sounds like it's leading to an upcoming Finch Festival at some point.
Yeah,
I would love to see that.
yeah.
How about in Wisconsin we do that?
That would be
It's
great.
actually talked about Maine at one point. The Maine is interested in like a
Hey, don't take this away from us, Matt. We just got
Yeah.
pictures. We're not giving it back.
all right, you'll be on the ground, people that help organize this, right?
Finch Fest 2025.
Yeah, that sounds great.
We'll have to do it in the northern part of the state. Where are you two located, by the way? I never
Like the southeast.
Yeah, I kind of thought so, because like
You sound so disappointed.
because you're well, no, it's just we say, well, we didn't really see that many of this or that many of that, and I'm like, well, the northern part of the state had a bunch of those.
Yeah.
One of our friends, Ryan, lives up there, and he's just got evening grosbeaks at his feeder constantly.
He had a GoFundMe because he was going through so much.
Yeah, Ryan
birds.
Brady.
Yeah.
Which we had a bunch of his photos in the
Yeah,
book.
his photos are in the book. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
he's just got right out his
Bunch
front
of
door,
photos.
so it's easy. You can just camp out there and get pictures of all sorts of wild stuff. I think he had a hoary redpoll a few years too,
Yeah,
before it
he
didn't
eats pine
exist.
grosbeaks at his feeder too.
Yep,
He
exactly.
does.
So,
But there's
I thought
several
about
photos.
just showing up unannounced and being like, I'm here to see your bird feeders, but
Well, you guys also have European goldfinch.
we
Right.
do.
True,
That's
yeah.
worth talking about
And
for sure.
that is that's a biggie. So they're sustained breeding. They're naturalized by you. It's the only place really in the country where they are sustained breeders since 2003. Julie Craves and Nicholas Anich did that big study and looked at 7,000 records and found that, wow, they've been breeding here since 2003. In the rest of the country, they're often considered escaped birds and not countable, but you want them on your ABA record, you can have, that's part of the Finch Festival. We can promote.
Yeah. See,
Karen,
Matt, this is a great location. We can't go that much
That's
more.
true.
north.
You do get European. You don't have to go too far for European goldfinch.
No, they're
Yeah.
in Illinois too. So we went to some place and
Yep.
we heard a flock of them. They're really kind of tough to find around here nowadays because they used to come to one feeder that was in the back of a bird food store. So you just had to go there and they would come there every single day in large numbers, like 40 to 60. And now they're kind of spread out across the southern part of Wisconsin and the northern part of Illinois. We also, on another note, too, have great tits that live in Sheboygan as a breeding population too. So it's the only place in the country you can get that as a breeder. I don't think it
countable?
counts the same. I don't think it's countable yet. It's been on the radar as a species that could be in the future.
Cool.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
I
it doesn't
kinda
look
didn't
so
know
bad
about
down here
that,
now,
but-
does it, Matt?
What's that?
It doesn't look so bad down here now.
No.
does it?
Well, look, I never thought Wisconsin was. It's just that I'm going to go to the north. We're going to go to the northern part of the state to do this festival.
If people want to support your guys' book, what are the best things they can, aside from buying it, giving it as a gift? I'm assuming leaving a rating and review really helps as well,
Yes.
right?
Please leave a review at Amazon and then put it on your social media, preferably with a picture of you holding the book and saying it's great. And give it as gifts. I think for Christmas, I'm going to give some people the book and maybe a finch feeder. It would be a nice combo to get people started in the excitement of finches.
Be a nice, if I don't know if you guys could do that, but on Amazon, have a package of the book, a feeder, a couple things you could do together. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
They kind of run their own packages, it seems, from what I could tell. But,
Okay.
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, cool. So what's next for both of you guys? Lillian, is there another book on the horizon?
Yeah,
Matt?
10 more books planned. No, kidding. People say that. It's like, hello, you have to sell the book that just came out. Your publisher won't let you do another book unless the one that just came out is doing really well. So,
Well, if it sells out, we did actually, originally we were toying with calling it Finches of North America, but given an ode to all the scientists in South America and Central America, or Central America, I should say. We wanted to call it United States and Canada. So there are 20-ish species that, if it sells, we could do another book and add those.
It's a part 2.
You never know. It'll be a relatively easier kind of like addition.
Volume 2.
Yeah.
I'm also a raptor nut. I'm on the board of directors of the Hawk Migration Association of North America, and they're having their big 50th celebration and big conference November 7th through 10th in Duluth. So that's a big deal coming up. But I'm also raptors are always something I maybe want to do something on. But like I said, first thing, sell the book. That's the biggie. That's our goal for
Leave a review. That will definitely help.
Yeah, totally. And we appreciate being able to be on your show for sure.
Yeah, of course. Is there like a threshold for like if we sell this many copies, we're doing well, or is it just kind of different for each piece?
That's up to the publisher. They have their and I don't actually know what it is. They have their own standards and comparisons and figures and break-even points depend on print runs. This is how the world of publishing works. But this is a long time ago. I was told something like, "Oh, the average book sells 1,000 copies and loses money." So you don't want to be in that in that group. So and Amazon bounces all over with what they consider top rated in the rankings of field guides, and they throw in all kinds of stuff that's hardly a field guide in the field guide section. So who knows? But anyway, yes, definitely. Yeah, there are standards, and people don't realize publishers are a business. They're in business to sell good books. So yeah.
So lots of people buying it for Christmas presents for others. So
that's good. I feel like the release date, the fall was a good choice because then you have ramping up into that winter finch season.
Yeah, it's the finch season. 'Tis the season.
Yeah, yep. I think we still have to set up a time to go finching in the North Woods somewhere with you, Matt. So
absolutely, at some point we'll make that happen. It'll be great because we've had a good relationship with doing these for a while. So anyway, appreciate it.
For sure. Well, thanks so much. Anything you guys want to add or tell people about the book before we sign off here?
No, I just think, we poured our hearts and our work into it and really tried to make it everything finch for anyone who would be interested in finches, and even for people who are not particularly interested in finches. And again, I think it's don't just write off, oh, well, it's a finch and I have a field guide. The book is so much more than that. It's a book. It's also, I will say, from a photography point of view, we worked with unbelievable photographers, some who just do it for a hobby, and some top professionals. The book is full of gorgeous photos. That was another thing I got to do. I got to do the photo search, and often Mary, the beautiful pieces of poetry or a quote. I know there's under the common red pole, look at the gorgeous, that often they have to do with the quick take, and the photo represents something about the quick take or whatever species that is. So there's full page photos in this book of some top photographers.
Brown capped.
Yeah.
Right.
Brown cap.
Right. A brown cap rosy finch.
Those are all confusing because they're all slightly different, the names of them.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Interesting, complex as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, thanks guys for having us.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on. Make sure that everyone checks out the Stokes Guide to the Finches. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to this episode of the Badgerland Birding Podcast.